Today we're looking at chapter 2, starts on page 37 of the Diamond Sutra. And the title of this is Subhuti Asked to be Taught. In Korean, 선현이 법을 청하니, right? Well, the interesting thing about this is that in the original Hanmaum, the Chinese characters, there's no title, right? Sunim was the one who came up with this title, that Subhuti is asking for the teachings. He's asking to be taught. And the funny thing is if you read this chapter, there's no question, right? There is no actual, Sejun, what do you think, right? Buddha, what do you think? How should I do this? There's no question. And yet Sunim is saying, he's actually asking a question. And so this is kind of funny. I don't know if this is an Indian style of speech where you can make a statement that's actually a question. I don't know if this is a traditional way of checking your understanding. Maybe traditionally in India, by making a statement like this, it gives your teacher a chance to check your understanding, and the expectation is that they will respond with they will give you an answer or give you some feedback. Like I said, I just don't know. The one thing that's interesting about this is from the context of the Diamond Sutra, Subhuti wants to be able to help other people, right? Subhuti is concerned about other people. He wants to share what he has experienced and use that to help other people. It's kind of the unspoken question throughout all of Kumgangyang. So kumgangyang 쭉 통과하는 질문은 내가 어떻게 가르칠 수 있을까? 내가 다른 사람들 어떻게 이렇게 가르칠 수 있을까? 영어 하겠습니다. So all of Buddha's answers and statements are in response to this unspoken question. How can I use my practice to help other people? As we talked about last time, this is not a dialogue between an awakened person and an unawakened person, right? This is a dialogue between two awakened people. The Buddha is at a different level than Subhuti. But Subhuti has already awakened to a certain level. And one of the stages, Sunim used the word stages that are not stages, but one of the levels of true awakening is understanding that everybody else's life and suffering and joy is your suffering, life, and joy, right? If he's happy, then I'm happy. If she's sad, then that's my sadness, right? This is a very deep level. In English, we call this empathy. Empathy is the word that's used. But Sunim always describes, she starts the Heart Sutra with this. She always describes the fundamental nature of all beings as sharing the same life, the same mind, the same body, working together as one, and freely giving and receiving whatever is needed. You go to Kong Seng, Kong Shim, Kong Yong, Kong Che, Kong Shik, right? And so Subhuti has already gotten to this point, I think. Subhuti is already here, so he already feels people's joy. He already feels people's suffering, and he wants to do something to help that. And there's no, like I said, there's no question actually asked. But apparently, that's why Subhuti is speaking. All right, so I'll go ahead and read the text on page 39. One day, after their meal, the preeminent Bhikkhu Subhuti arose from his place among those gathered near the Buddha. He covered his right shoulder with his robe, placed his right knee on the ground, and speaking thus with his palms together, spoke. How rare, O world-honored one! Tathagata non-dually guides and directs the manifestation of one mind as innumerable bodhisattvas. Their response and interaction with the world are likewise the non-dual functioning of Tathagata. Let's go to the next page. World-honored one, if I have understood correctly, you have taught us that when men and women awaken to the deepest truth, they are able to positively, wisely, proactively respond to the impermanence of every place and thing, of every life and creation. As they become one with the unenlightened beings within their body, all of those beings naturally submit to and follow one mind. And with everything thus perceived as myself, this non-dual one mind manifests every moment, sending forth whatever is needed. Now, I'll stop on that point, but this is every single English, so going back to page 39, every single English translation of the Diamond Sutra is different on this chapter. Nobody, it's like nobody knows what the first two paragraphs are actually saying, right? And even for us to translate this into Korean was quite, from Korean to English, was quite difficult. But Kansunim does something funny something interesting in the Hangul, in that the subject and the object switch places. Between the first paragraph, the second paragraph, the first set of lines, Yore geso Hanmaum jaseng ju washim bosadir, right? That's the object of the first, or that's the subject of the first phrase, and then it becomes the object of the second phrase. It's like a switch between active and passive. And I think it's, on the one hand, you have a lot of non-dual things happening at the same time. One of the biggest things in the Diamond Sutra is Kansunim's use of the word Tathagata, or in Korean, Yore, right? In most of the time, people treat Yore, or Tathagata, as a title, like a job title, like Buddha, or an honorific. But in Dusarapun Kumgangyong, what we find is that Yore can be translated as Hanmaum, or one mind. Functionally, it has the same meaning. Kansunim's talking about the same thing. And so when it says Tathagata is doing something, you should understand this as this non-dual one mind is doing this. So there's other places where the text says Tathagata says that. And it's a little bit weird in English because it's like in English, you don't refer to yourself in the third person, right? Chong is telling you now that, it's like, in English it's like, what are you, crazy? You just don't do that. And normally you don't see that other places either. But here, the Buddha is saying, Tathagata is telling you that, this is happening. Well, here, Tathagata, if you think of it as one mind, this non-dual one mind is saying this. Then it makes a lot of sense. The Buddha's like, it's not me saying this. This non-dual whole is saying this is what you need to do. So it's a very, in almost every case in Kumgangyong, in Diamond Sutra, we were able to figure out a way to translate it from that perspective. There's like one case where I couldn't quite figure out how to do it, and that's probably my fault. But, and this is, so this first paragraph on page 39 is hinting at something that we'll see that's coming up right next. Okay. And so on page 41, page 41 has two very big ideas. The first idea is this idea that when men and women awaken, so in English it would be the fourth line through maybe the eighth line. When men and women awaken to the deepest truth, they're able to respond positively, wisely, proactively to the impermanence of every place and thing. This is an interesting idea because it implies that there's something about impermanence, right? In Korean, musang, that people aren't responding wisely to. They aren't. It's implying that they aren't handling this wisely. They're maybe it just means they're forming attachments, or what would be in English the word is aversions, like you don't want something. So like in the song Daejangbu, Kunsunim says, don't block what's coming and don't try to keep what's leaving. And maybe that's what she means, or that's what she implies about responding to impermanence. You know, things that are coming, but they won't be here forever. Even if something difficult, even if the situation is quite hard, that's still impermanent. That's still changing. It won't be here forever. Likewise, if you have something wonderful, that's also changing. It won't be here forever. So enjoy it while it's here, but don't get too attached to it. The other probably, it's the last 6 lines that are so massively important. It's on page 41. As they become one with the unenlightened beings within their body, all of those beings naturally submit to and follow one mind. I mean, that is, because we know Daehaeng Sunim, or Kunsunim, has talked about opshik, right, or karmic states of consciousness. Our body is made up of all of these consciousnesses, and in a way can be described as karmic echoes. I was going to use English. There are states of consciousness from some time in the past, right? At some point in our development, we input that state of consciousness. We made a recording of that state of consciousness, and now later it comes back out. And this is, it comes back out through my body, through my mind, and so I think, oh, that's me. This is me that feels this way. This is me that has this thought. So suddenly I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm filled with desire or aversion or something. It's like, well, I'm feeling it, so it must be my thought. And what Kunsunim has said many, many times is that not necessarily. It could be just like an echo from the past, and you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to react to it. And so, so when we take those and when we entrust them and let them sink down, Kunsunim compared it to a blast furnace, or in Korean, a yongwangno. When all those things melt down, they become re-input again, they all become one. They all become one mind. And basically, they change their color. They start working together harmoniously again. This is this is maybe not the most ideal description, but one of the things about cancer is that cancer is unharmonious cell growth, right? And it used to be thought cancer was the damaged cells or the weak cells. Now we know cancer is actually the cells that are too strong, right? They're the cells that are going out of control, behaving. In terms of society, cancer is the people who only think about themselves. Right? And they don't care what happens to other people. In our body, that's cancer cells. It doesn't do our body any good, and as we can see in society and the world, it doesn't do the world any particular good. But all those beings naturally submit to and follow one mind. As somebody who was around Sunim, I saw many times she'd meet people or even animals, and sometimes they'd be instantly friendly with her. They'd just completely change their behavior. And it was like they felt some bigger pull. They felt some bigger acceptance or peace, or they felt the pull of her energy, and it moved them along on a more harmonious path automatically. It was kind of interesting. There was a dog up at Samaksa that always used to bark at us when we went up there. Then one time we started going up there for a walk with Sunim. And as soon as Sunim started going up there, it barked at her the first day, but every day afterwards, it never barked at her. I was always really happy to see her. And, it's one of those things where in English and maybe in Korean, 항복한다, surrender to or submit to. It sounds kind of violent or aggressive or domination, but it's much more like they wake up and go, oh wow, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's do things a different way. I don't want to try to fight everybody. I don't want to try to fight everything. It's like, let's work together as one. And then things go smoothly. And the other thing is that this is exactly what Kunsim is talking about in the previous page, the last 3 lines. And with everything perceived as myself, this non-dual mind manifests every moment, sending forth whatever is needed. This is, this is, if I think I can't do this, this is, this, for example, anything, money, material goods, time and space, I can't help him because he's over there, right? Oh, we're separate, there's no connection. But if I realize his mind is my mind, his body is my body, then at some point, this fundamental essence that we are has no problem making that connection. The problem before was my thought that we're different, right? If I think I only have this much money, right? This is all the money I have, I can't do anything. Then my thought is making this limitation. It's saying I think I'm describing it to myself. I only have this much money, right? But what I'm actually giving myself a command in a way at the same time, saying, I only have this much money. And so there's all kinds of like sort of get rich quick or think your way to rich stuff. And sometimes it partly works because it picks up on this principle. If I realize all the money, all the stuff in the world is also my stuff, why can't it do this? Then, I mean, that's also true. Now, there's karma and there's some other things going on there. You know, if because my true self is connected to us, it has a better understanding of my capacity than I do. So if I say, oh, I want all the money in the world, and my true self is like, you'll screw up. Your attachments or your limitations will destroy you. Because if you think about like lottery winners, so many lottery winners, like 60-70% in America go bankrupt. And probably at least half of the lottery winners wish they never won the lottery. So just having more of something isn't a good idea. But when we make this connection with the whole, that's already understood, right? Yeah. What's my capacity? How much can I absorb? How much can I hold? How much can I hold? If I put too much in a small cup, it spills over and causes me problems, right? But because if I'm coming from a place where I'm connected with the whole, that's understood. And it's like, a small tree can drink this much water, a big tree can drink this much water. And that just happens automatically because there's no disconnect, because there's no separation. So that's why Kunzim is saying this non-dual mind, this non-dual one mind manifests according to the need every moment, according to the situation. It's like I said, there's also karma going on, and there's also what people need to learn. Some things people have to learn for themselves, right? If you take away everybody's problems, if you take away everybody's situation, you may screw up their development. So just taking away stuff isn't necessarily an answer. My feeling was that Kunsanim could, in essence, she could turn on the heat, right? She could turn on the lights. She could give me a slice of pizza, right, for a snack. But the sukje, the homework, I had to do. And so I still have to do my part. I'm the one who's got to do that. I can't ignore that. Okay. Okay, so let me pick up again on page 43. Such compassion, Subhuti, such compassion, replied the Buddha, is as you have said. Tathagata is itself non-dual mind, without discriminations or divisions. Thus, innumerable bodhisattvas arise from this one mind, freely manifesting and responding to whatever is needed. Now listen carefully, and I'll tell you something special. Those wonderful men and women who wish to awaken to the deepest truth and use that to help other beings must manage the lives within non-dually. You must take these inner lives that are unaware of one mind and cause them to surrender to one mind. Thank you, world-honored one. Your words fill me with joy. Would you please speak more about this? So the Korean on the very first line, where we translated such compassion, Subhuti, such compassion, that's kind of an interesting choice because in Korean it's chakadoda, right? And it could mean nicely done, or literally it means, oh, you're so kind, right? Aigu ipura, kind of a expression. But from the context, I think the Buddha is picking up on why Subhuti is asking it, why Subhuti made a statement before. He may have, in the opening we said the Buddha was together with 1,250 other bhikkhu Sunims, right? So I don't know if these were all bhikkhu Sunims in the visible realm, or maybe there were some bhikkhu Sunims in the unseen realms. But Subhuti may have been making this statement for the sake of people for the sake of other people, to remind them of the Buddha's teachings and to give them something to think about, and maybe to give the Buddha a chance to make a commentary about Subhuti's understanding. But I also think Subhuti wanted to check his understanding to see if he was understanding things correctly, to see if he could help people using this. But this is, so the second paragraph, the end of the second paragraph, is something that Daehaeng Sunim talked about so often. So the last three lines of the second paragraph: must manage the lives within non-dually. You must take these inner lives that are unaware of one mind and cause them to surrender to one mind. So the Diamond Sutra doesn't give a lot of specific directions, right? Kunsinim's translation of the Thousand Hand Sutra, right? Dusrapun Chansugyang, Chansugyang, has very specific directions for spiritual practice. Whereas Kumgangyang is not so much, this is pretty advanced. This is more like, recite this, let it sink down within you, and just sort of absorb it. But this is one of the few very specific directions. Take the inner lives that are unaware of one mind and cause them to surrender to one mind, right? These karmic states of consciousness that bubble up in Korean, these opshik that come up, take those and return them back to one mind, right? Let them dissolve and let them make contact, if you will, with this fundamental foundation. We have one mind. And if you want to awaken to the deepest truth, if you want to truly help other beings, get these lives within you back in touch with one mind. This is one of the few really clear pieces of advice that Kunsinam gives in the Diamond Sutra. And I think this is a big one. One of the very first talks I ever heard from Kunsinam was this topic. She was talking about opshik. Don't let your karmic states of consciousness control you. Don't mistake those thoughts and feelings for yourself. You don't have to just do what they say. Don't let them decide the direction of your life. Because, like I said, those are echoes, right? Those are things we created at lower states of existence. As you all know, we've all evolved. As Kunsinam always said to misengmulbuto ingankaji, 이렇게 진화했다. Right? She always said that. We've all evolved from microbes up to human beings. But that means we've gone through a lot of different stages of existence. And any habit you have, by definition, a habit is something you kept repeating because it did some good, right? If a habit was if something was completely useless, you never did it again. But if it some habits are not healthy, right? Drug use, right? Well, people keep doing drugs because they're getting something from it. It may be doing more damage than they realize, but it was something kind of useful. So all the habits that we have from the times we were an animal, right, or an insect, or a human being, all those habits develop because they sort of worked at that level. But as we keep going, we realize, oh, it's not working very well, or it's got too many side effects. But we still have those habits encoded within us as the karmic states of consciousness of our lives. So one of our basic steps as a practitioner is just to dissolve those, right? When they come up, you say, oh, okay. You don't, it gets easy to despise things or to look down upon things, but it's completely unnecessary. You say, sort of like, oh, hello, old friend, haven't seen you in a while. You're something that was useful at one point, but we don't have to, we can do things a little better and just entrust it and let it melt down and let it make contact and be reborn as something new. Okay. So let's try discussion groups here. So just, it looks like we have 2 people at each table. So just going from the front, if every 4 people would just form a group, right? So you 4, the next 4, you 4, next 4, and maybe there'd be one group with 6 people, but just get together, and we can speak Korean for this. Okay. 이 부분은 저 한국말로 하도 돼요. 아, 참. 제가 또 토론 어떻게 하는지 저 한국말로 얘기하면 되죠. 저 앞에서 저 2 테이블씩, 앞에서부터 2 테이블씩이나 그때 3 테이블 좀 모이고, 4명이나 6명 모여서 저 한국말로 저 토론합시다. 저 소개시키고, 내가 뭐 느꼈어요, 그냥 뭐가 조금 와닿는 한 점 있으면, 없으면 없고, 또 질문 있으면 질문이고, 또 한 10분, 15분 그렇게 해보고, 또 끝나서 저 혹시 저 질문이나 있으면 저 물어보고, 또 그렇게 해봅시다. So does anybody have any questions? 이 토론 부분은 어떻게 생각했었어요? 토론. 디스커션 부분 어떻게 생각했었어요? 재미있었는가 봐요? 아주 와바와바와 했었어. 재밌었을 것 같은데. 오케이. 제가 한 가지 재밌는 게 얘기하겠어요. On page 43, the second paragraph, the last 2 lines, you must take these inner lives that are unaware of one mind and cause them to surrender to one mind. 이게 찾았죠? 맞은편에 한글 보세요. 마지막 줄에 내면에 한마음 없는 한마음을 항복하게 하라. 그것도 너무 멋있어요. 그래서 우리가 이거 번역하기 위해서 엄청 진담을 흘렸어요. 무슨 내면에 한마음 없는 한마음을 뭔가 이거 우리 몸속에 있는 중생들 원래 애당초부터 지금도 한 마음이에요. 근데 한 마음인 줄 몰라요. 그래서 막 여기저기 제 마음대로 해요. 어떤 데는 착하게 하고, 어떤 데는 문제 일으키고. 이 한 마음 속에 있는 한 마음들, 야, 너희들 한 마음이다. 다시 알게 되는 일이에요. 그래서 이 한글 진짜 대단합니다. 참 멋있어요. 저 영어가 좀 비교적으로 싱거워요. 솔직히 말하면. But 속에 있는 뜻이가, 속에 있는 의미가 전달하기 위해서 조금 이렇게 할 수밖에 없었어요. But 2차판 나올 때 혹시 영어 그것도 잡을 수 있을까 생각해요. But so this is the if you've read a lot of or listened to a lot of Kansim's Jungi Bomun, this is a very, very constant idea. 이거 보사로 와하요. 선법가에서도 이 뜻이가 나와요. 무슨 푸르게 살아라? 대장부? 이 똑같은 줄 보사로 와하러. 이 몸속에 있는 중생들 보사로 와하라. Take all this stuff that's coming out. This is coming from my 중공, right? This is coming from my foundation. All this stuff is originally started from my foundation. And the thing is, it's not the computer's fault for the output, right? The computer produces output according to what was input. And so if we input selfish things, if we input dualistic things, we get out dualistic results. And it's easy to blame, when something first happens, it's easy to blame something or someone else. 주인공, 왜 너는 이렇게 했었어? My true self, how did you let this happen? But it's like if you push down here, something pops up over here. Something had to happen here for something to happen there. And unfortunately, it's often the results of our own, in some fashion or another, it's the results of our own limited perception, our own limited understanding. But if we take that and we entrust that and we let that melt down again, then it changes into something else. You have to have good judgment, right? If somebody's attacking you with a knife, just standing there and saying, 주인공, true self, help me, you have to use your brain and your body too sometimes, right? Running away is sometimes a good way to handle things. But even bad people will eventually become good people if you keep inputting that. It may not be this lifetime, right? But eventually that will change too. 그래서 좀, be careful. Don't be stupid. Take care of yourself, but keep inputting that and let those situations change. You have to have. Kansanim sometimes use the expression, use that lump on your shoulders for something. 네 어깨 위에 뭐라고 말씀하셨어요? I can't remember the expression in Korean now. Basically, you have a lump of flesh on your shoulders. Use it for something useful. Use your brain, right? Use your good judgment. But at the same time, keep entrusting that, keep entrusting that, keep entrusting that, and things will change. Things will move in a more harmonious direction. And in so doing, we take we take all these lives within us, and they become bodhisattvas. And this is our potential. That's why Kansanim said, Naimyane, this inner one mind that doesn't know it's one mind, and cause that to return to one mind, cause that to surrender, right? It's all inherently one mind. There's nothing outside of this one mind. That sometimes we have to remind it ourselves, we have to remind it that it is one mind. Once that finally sinks in, then that too changes. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And as always, if you have any good ideas or suggestions for the course structure or direction, please let me know. Thank you very much.